part of the accepted job. I tell you what, makes you respect astronauts a lot more, doesn't it? They know this, and they accept it as part of the job risk. And it's the thing that
That's incredible.
Nobody talks about it that much.
That's incredible. I never knew that.
Pretty heroic people, aren't they?
Yeah. The Challenger. They haven't, it was horrible.
Tell me about it.
And they don't talk much about it, David, but I thought I would ask, were those astronauts alive till they hit the water?
They were alive all the way to impact. And people go, how do you know that? Interesting politics occurred. The capsule came down in Brevard County, which comes under the jurisdiction of the Brevard County coroner, who had jurisdiction over NASA. So he got to see the bodies with NASA throwing a fit. But more than that, when they found the capsule, we found the crew compartment intact. The crew was still there in the flight deck area.
Oh.
The reason we know they were alive was that, let me explain the scenario, what happened in that explosion. Let's back up just a bit. When a shuttle's built, designed, if you look at it, just forward at the end of the cargo bay, you have a massive bulkhead, a wall, which is the back of the nose section of the space shuttle.
Right.
If you would grab a toy model by the cargo bay and grab that nose and break it, it's going to break even at that wall, because that's the way this thing is structurally designed.
Right.
In the very beginning, we asked for a Rolls Royce in a spacecraft, and we started off with one. We really did. But when the budget cuts came, by the time we got through with it, we almost got a Ford Pinto. Well, I bet Ford's going to hate me on that one. But the point is that we took a lot away from it. One of the things that the design engineers wanted to do was build an explosive collar that goes between the end of the cargo bay and the nose section, the cabin crew of the shuttle.
So they could separate
right.
the
Once
human
you
beings.
do, you blow that entire nose section away from the rest of the shuttle. It will tumble out, and then it can stabilize itself either by aerodynamic structure of itself or use the retro rockets. But it would pop its nose section off. A drogue chute would come out, which would then eventually pull it after stabilized. Then the main chutes would come out, and that entire pressurized cabin area would land, and everybody crawls out and go, what a ride, you know?
Yeah, so why didn't we do it? Money?
Budget cuts. Yeah, they cut all the budget. They started cutting back because cost overruns started because you've got a bureaucratic agency trying to make a competitive market machine, which is not going to be able to do it. And Gene Myers and his outfit showed that really well with what Boeing had to say. Boeing now has bought Rockwell International, who's the prime contractor. They're the ones that built the orbiter, the space shuttle.
All right, well, remember when it blew up? You remember the leak that it showed with the fire coming kind of horizontally?
Right.
Okay.
At the SRB.
Something I've wondered about in recent launches, and I watch all the launches really carefully. I swear, and it just may be a trick on the eye, but I could swear I've seen exactly the same kind of fire at about the same point on a lot of launches.
I still got the same problem. It hasn't been fixed all that necessarily. So let me tell you a little bit about that. But first, I better back up and answer the question: how do we know the crew is alive?
Yeah.
See, when the thing exploded, the external tank, when it ruptured with the SRB going into it, it blew the shuttle apart. And guess what stayed in complete intact? The entire nose section forward of the cargo bay. And there's a picture that I have here with the sunlight shining off the windshield coming out of the fireball, meaning that the windshield didn't even shatter.
Wow.
So the long-range Air Force cameras took this picture. So anyhow, the thing went tumbling away from there, and so it's on free fall. Now, it's going to free fall quite a while, good 8 to 12 minutes. They were quite a ways up. And in free fall, what are astronauts used to working in? Weightless environment.
Correct.
They're in free fall. They're in a weightless environment. These are trained professionals except for the school teacher. Everybody was a veteran astronaut there with hours in space. And what we found was OBAs were not torn off the wall. Those are oxygen breathing apparatuses. The OBAs were removed from their racks, and they had put their OBAs on so they could breathe because they had lost internal oxygen pressurization. And the next thing that we found is that the medical kits were not torn from the back of the seats. They had been removed. They were fixing each other up because the shrapnel coming through there must have been like being in a closet with a chainsaw. So these people are wounded and injured, but they're professionals, and even if you have a leg or arm blowed off in a weightless environment, you can move around a lot easier.
Yep.
So they're repairing each other on the way to impact.
But they knew they were going to die.
They knew they were going to die. They can't talk to us. All radio communications doesn't exist. It's blown away in the impact.
Well, you know, the public, NASA, of course, wanted to hide all of this because I guess they wanted to protect the families.
No, they wanted to show how damn criminal neglect they didn't want to be found that they were.
Well, I think they have made some statements about wanting to protect the families anyway.
Well, you see what they did to the families. They harassed the families to no end.
What?
Because the families wanted to sue and all that, so they came at them like you wouldn't believe.
Well, look, I'm of two minds about this. Yes, it was horrible. They would be awake to the ground.
Right.
But then on the other hand, you know, it's not that horrible. I mean, you can get hit by a Mack truck and die instantly.
Right.
And you have no time to reflect on your life, no time to make peace with your maker and yourself, or you can have a little time left to reflect on your life, to know you had a good life or not,
right,
and to try and make peace and all the rest of that, and that is not such a bad thing.
Yeah, but Art, you can't control a semi-accident that comes out of happenstance and serendipity that got you. This was totally preventable.
All right, we'll talk about that, David. We're at the top of the hour, so stand by. David Adair is my guest. This is Coast to Coast AM.
Now here again is Art.
Well, hello. Good morning. This is hour number 2 of the program, hour number 1 of the program for WABC AM in New York. Damn. This is, as I explained to the earlier audience, and I've explained to audiences now for years, it's going to be hard for me because I am nervous, actually terrified, panic attack, sweat coming from the brow. I have on my website, I have a webcam, a live webcam, and you can go there and actually see photographs of me as I'm doing the program. I don't know, like every 45 seconds or something, and you can see the sweat coming off my brow. I have little panic attacks. Anyway, I guess if all the satellites and receivers and links and so forth worked correctly, we are now on the air in New York City. Now, I grew up in the Northeast Corridor in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, outside Philadelphia, Maryland, down near the Maryland-Pennsylvania border. In other words, all around New York. My dad worked in New York City and Manhattan for a lot of years. As a matter of fact, he once took me in, and I got to shake hands with President Eisenhower, where he worked, in Manhattan. And so I know Manhattan. And there is no way, even being, and I was talking to Sean Hannity, who was kind enough to have me on WABC before all this began tonight for about a half hour. And there's just no way for me to not be nervous, even after all these years and all these radio stations. Here we are on the radio station that I grew up with. The radio station I grew up with, WABC. 77 WABC, Cousin Brucey, you know, the whole thing when I was a kid. And it was more than a dream. It was a bigger dream than I could dream then to be on WABC, and here I am on WABC. So what I am going to try to do is to not think about it. Now that I've welcomed WABC And I in my mind's eye, as I said, I picture, inevitably, no matter what I do, I picture Manhattan, the skyline. It's like I'm 30 or 40,000 feet above it, and I can see all the gazillions of people down there. This even happens to me when I go to L.A. We're on KBC in Los Angeles, and I go down to Los Angeles, and I'm at the airport because, I transit in and out for something or another. And when I'm home here in Nevada doing my show from the desert,